the amazing Dr. Malvika, who is running today's session on, did you say behaviours?
Emotions.
Emotions.
We're going to do emotions today.
On emotions. So thank you. Before we start, though, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the beautiful lands that I live and work on, the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and to pay my respects to elders past, present, and to any First Nations people that may watch this recording after our session today. So thank you again, Malvika, for joining us to run our next our series. We've had great feedback on the first session, and I'm really excited to learn more from you today about how we can manage our emotions, particularly, I think, as dyslexics and neurodivergent individuals who we come with a lot of trauma from our past that we may not recognize is trauma. And for those who identify but haven't had the opportunity to have an assessment where they might be wondering why they're reacting or feeling this way, and it could be linked to that undiagnosed neurodivergence that they may have. So I'm not going to talk like I usually do. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. It's loading. You can see it?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. So today we're going to do a second part of the first part. Last time we talked about thoughts. Today we're going to talk about emotions. And we're going to go through a lot of different skills to manage our emotions, but we're also going to talk about, the different emotions that we have, and whether, and some myths that we've heard that people have about emotions. There are a lot of myths that neurodivergents have about emotions as well. So we're going to kind of break that down a little bit. So we're going to start with a little bit about me. My name is Malvika Behl. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in Texas. I'm also a school counselor. I'm certified as a school counselor in Ohio. I have a PhD in counselor education, and I teach currently at West Texas A&M University here in Texas. I have worked with several families and children with learning disabilities, and currently I do a lot of research pertaining to mental health and people with learning disabilities and families with learning disabilities. So here is our second, so this is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is where we started. We have gone through thoughts, now we're going through emotions. Cognitive behavioral therapy kind of talks about how our thoughts, emotions, and behavior are all connected to each other. So we're going to break all three of them down in the 3-part series, and then we're going to talk. And then the last one, which is behaviors, I'm going to connect all three for people. So just to clarify, what are emotions? Right? Emotions are psychological states comprised of thoughts, feelings, psychological changes, expressive behavior, and inclinations to act. We have emotions about almost everything we experience. A work meeting gives us some emotions. A birthday party gives us some emotions. A new puppy gives us some emotions. Your child being sick gives you a couple of more emotions. So it's just important to understand the fact that emotions are a normal part of everyday life. Everybody has emotions about different things. Let's say, you are walking home and you see someone fall down. You'll have emotions about that as well. So it's just the smallest little thing that happened to you or around you can give you an emotion. Here are some common myths about emotions. Since I've worked with a lot of people with learning disabilities as a whole, dyslexia specifically, there are times when people are invalidated because of certain feelings or emotions that they have. It could be because of the fact that the people around them don't have the knowledge that they need to validate their feelings, or the fact that they're just not well informed. But as kids, when you are invalidated, there are common myths about emotions that impact our daily life. You know, there's myths like there is a right way to feel in every situation. If somebody around you falls, right? Let's say, I'm going to take my toddler as an example. Sometimes she falls and it's funny, right? And I laugh. That does not mean the fact that she cannot feel sad about it. It's just funny. We both have different feelings about the very same situation. So every situation, every feeling is based on a person, right? Let's see. The solar eclipse that happened recently, everybody has different feelings about it. Is there a right way to feel about that, or a right emotion to have about it? No, not really. Myth 2, when I let others know I'm feeling bad, it shows that I'm weak or flawed. In a day, you can count the number of emotions you go through. Let's say you wake up all happy and energized because you got an 8-hour nap, 8-hour sleep, sorry. Barely ever happens, but we're gonna go with it. Let's say you wake up all happy, and then from there, you get your toddler ready for school and ready for daycare. And as you're about to step out of the house, your toddler decides to drop food all over themselves. Now, you're going to have to go change your toddler's clothes. And now you might be getting late for work. So that happy mood that you woke up with is declining a little bit. You're kind of getting angry, upset, and you're wondering about the consequences that might come with you being late to work. That is just your morning. This does not include maybe your toddler doesn't want to eat. Maybe they don't like what you cook. Maybe they don't like what you say. Mine's teething right now, so, anything can upset her. So just that morning itself, you've already had 3 to 4 emotions. By the time you get to work, now there are other things that you have to deal with. So it's just important to remember the fact that I got to work, now I have been given this file that I have to deal with, or this new client that I have to deal with that I don't know anything about, and I have a meeting in an hour with them. I don't know anything about this person. This is making me feel frustrated, and I'm upset. Just because I share those feelings doesn't make me weak or flawed. That's the situation. If I get the other thing that I've heard neurodivergence kind of talk about, and I've read about it a couple of times, that if I show people that I don't know something, they're going to think that I'm weak and I'm flawed and I cannot do anything related to that. For example, I know somebody who has a hard time reading. It's dyslexia. It's a reading disability. But they will overcompensate and impact their life significantly so that other people around them don't know that they have this reading disability, because they feel that once people figure it out, there's so much stigma involved with it that other people will think that they're weak, and then it'll kind of impact them significantly. Just remember the fact that I have the right to be angry and upset, and I have the right to cry without worrying about what other people think. Myth 3, all negative emotions will keep on increasing in intensity if I don't act now. There are two types of emotions that people feel, pleasant and unpleasant, or approved and avoidance. Yeah. So if I have a negative emotion, it is a part of an emotion. I do want to go back and mention this, which I think I forgot, and I will over the slides, is that every emotion that's out there, frustrated, happy, sad, mad, they are normal emotions. Anxious, everybody feels them. It's normal to feel anxious. When it starts to impact your life is when we have to start getting skills and figure out how can we cope with it. Sometimes I'm late to work and I'm anxious about being late to work. Yes, do I sit in my car and I take deep breaths to help myself calm down? Yes. But all emotions, all negative emotions or positive emotions are very normal to have. If my emotions keep on increasing in intensity, if I don't act on it, not always true. Sometimes it does reduce over time. Negative emotions are bad and destructive. Again, all emotions are normal. Everybody feels them. And we'll go through some, I have a emotion wheel that we'll kind of go through. All emotions happen spontaneously for no reason. There is always a trigger. Something triggers an emotion. A happy emotion, a angry emotion, something triggers it. Some emotions are completely stupid and useless. Well, all emotions are valid. You have the right to feel angry at somebody when they do something to piss you off. If others do not agree with how I feel, I must be wrong. Again, your emotions are valid. You have the right to feel whatever you want to feel. And there's nothing wrong with being angry. There are times when people will say, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Or you need to learn, I have been told a couple of times, you need to learn how to calm down. You are a female. Females don't act like this. Don't they though?
Or
I'm
you're too
pissed off.
emotional.
Yeah, you're too emotional.
In the
Well, you
workplace, you're
said
too
something.
emotional, so we're going to performance manage you.
Yeah.
Because you can't accept feedback in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? If your feedback upsets me, I have the right to be upset about it. Right? So if others do not agree with how I feel, I must be wrong is kind of a myth. You have the right to feel whatever you want to feel. Other people are best at knowing how I'm feeling. No, you are an expert in your life. You have the right to say, I know that this is how I'm feeling. Now, if others don't agree with it, that's a them problem, not a you problem. All emotions, all painful emotions can be ignored because they are unimportant. You know, when you have trauma, and trauma that comes from either being invalidated, trauma that comes from feeling being bullied, trauma that comes from having to overcompensate on things that are just easy for other people. These are triggers. So when somebody says, hey, but that's so easy. Okay, math is really hard for me. Sometimes keeping the days of the week together is really hard for me. If somebody looks at me, which my partner has at times, but that's so easy. No, it's not. 2 + 2 is 4. Fine. But is that easy? No, it's not easy for my 2-year-old who doesn't know numbers yet. You know? So these are small triggers that impact your day-to-day life, and they cause painful emotions. emotions of like feeling like being rejected, being told the fact over, and the trauma of not being accepted as a child comes back as an adult, right? If somebody looks at you and says something that you were told over and over again as a child, right? Or something like, if you just act nice, people would just be nice to you. I don't want to act nice. I'm having a bad day, and if people don't want to accept it, again, a them problem. Will I go out and yell at every other person? No, but I'm having a bad day, and I'm going to let myself feel that way. A lot of times people don't let themselves feel a feeling. I was thinking about it and I was like, should I give this example? Should I not? I was like, whatever. When I am anxious, I cannot read a new book. I cannot read any new book. I have a book, Neil Alexander Passe has written a book, Dyslexia and Mental Health. I have had that for 3 weeks. I've been in a constant state of anxiety for 3 weeks, and I don't know why. Probably because I have a lot to do, but one of the reasons is that. But I've been in a constant state of anxiety. I have been going back, I read every day before bed. I have been going back and reading the books I have already read. I cannot get myself to open a new book because the anxiety stops me from doing that. So my way of coping with that is to just keep reading a book that I'm reading. It's a painful emotion at times when the anxiety is so debilitating. But am I going to say, well, this is not important, I should just start a new book? A lot of times I have done that once, and I couldn't read the other book. It had to like stop by like page 4, and I had to go back to reading a different book. That is my way of coping, and I'm okay with it. My partner sometimes looks at me and says, "You're reading that book again?" Yes. Yes, I am. My way of coping, my emotion of anxiety. Feeling negative or painful emotions means I'm bad. Again, frustration, anger, feeling disrespected, those are very normal feelings. We all feel them at one point or the other. Don't let the people's view of saying, oh, that's a negative feeling, you shouldn't be feeling that way. Should is a word people shouldn't be using at all. I can feel whatever I want to. They're my feelings to feel. So 2 types of emotions, pleasant and unpleasant. Pleasant emotions, happy, joy. Unpleasant emotions, sad, frustrated, anger. But everybody has them. Just to clarify, we all have pleasant emotions and we all have unpleasant emotions. They're all a part of everybody. So here's some basic emotions that people feel: joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, anticipation, basic emotions, right? But then we can go to something as advanced as the feeling wheel or the emotion wheel. I have used this in therapy specifically where people have colored the emotion, where they've said, I feel scared, I'm feeling fear. Okay, can you specify what kind of fear? I'm feeling rejected. Why are you feeling rejected? Because sometimes I feel the fact that I am inferior to other people. You can use these very situationally as well. If you're having a hard day and it's hard to just process feelings, you can sit with your feeling wheel and just look at it and go, okay, let's figure out what I'm feeling. I'm feeling angry. Okay, I'm feeling angry because maybe I'm feeling threatened, or I'm feeling hurt. because I embarrassed myself sometime during the day. There are times when people are really worried about what others would think. If your feelings are attached to other people's thoughts, your feelings can be very stressful. There are videos out there where people talk about, hey, I spend a lot of time thinking about what other people think. If we spend about 50% of the time letting us feel what we are feeling and tell us it's okay. Spend 15 minutes today just being disappointed in what happened today. There's like a lot of people apply for stuff. You apply for jobs, you apply for college. Sometimes you don't get in. So you feel disappointed, right? And people use the quote that says, just dust yourself off and it'll happen again. If I'm disappointed, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes to just to sit there and be disappointed. I'm going to be disappointed that I didn't get it. And then 15 minutes later, then I'm going to figure out what to do next. But I'm going to let myself feel this. And that is a big, it's a very big thing for people to let themselves feel something. If someday you're sad, you can let yourself feel sad by sitting in the car and playing sad music and just crying through it. It's something as small as that. If you feel sitting in the car and feeling sad and you say, I'm going to play happy music, it makes me feel better. Are you invalidating your own feeling that says, don't feel sad? Nobody is good at validating your feelings than other people. Nobody's good at validating your feelings in yourself, while others can be good at invalidating your feelings. Again, you as a person are an expert in your life. Don't let others tell you how or what you should be feeling. You can use this at home to kind of assess how you're feeling. There are more extensive, this is more of a non-colored version, but there are extensive colored versions out there, which has like 5 or 6 circles. You can use this for yourself. You can use this with your kids at home. You can use this with your partner, kind of just using that to assess emotions. Again, all these feelings are normal. It is normal to feel it. People feel the feeling, hence there's a name to it. I could be really happy for somebody who got a promotion, but at the same time be upset at the fact that I didn't get it. My feeling is I'm happy for that person, they got a promotion. But I'm upset I didn't get it. And I'm going to let myself be upset for a little bit. So the next slide is, how do we manage our emotions? I'm going to have everybody bring a pen and a paper. If you have it around you, just keep it with you. Okay. Ready? Okay. We'll have a discussion. Identifying the triggering emotion. When we feel angry, right? Anger is like, this is an anger iceberg, right? Anger is just at the very top. Anger is what we see. I can give you an example. Over the past 4 or 5 days, my toddler has been having a lot of tantrums. It's just exponentially gone up. And today, while I was trying to do this presentation and put it together, I realized that every day when she comes back from daycare, I spend an hour with her. Last week, because of the amount of work I had, I wasn't able to, which over the course of the week impacted her behavior. So today, when I brought her back, I didn't leave the room. I sat in the room. I let her play with her toys. I let her interact with me. We talked, we played, and we didn't have a tantrum today. So what I was seeing as a tantrum or anger at the very top, it could be because she was feeling insecure or she was feeling stress. Why isn't my mom playing with me right now? She was feeling disappointed. So there were a lot of underlying feelings based off of that top feeling of anger, which is all I could see, right? So there are times when I feel angry, when I feel that I'm being disrespected. You can do the same with anxiety. You're feeling anxious because I am stressed. I'm feeling anxious because I feel shame or guilt or sometimes I'm angry because I'm hungry. And that's, that's another underlying emotion. So I would like you to, and you don't have to share this, so just take it. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. Identify some underlying feelings that make you angry. Try to remember the last time you were angry and what caused it. You guys want to share? You don't have to.
I'm happy to share because I quite like this activity. So yeah, I couldn't come up with just one word for each description, but feeling inadequate, if things are out of my control, feeling used and unappreciated, feeling unheard. So I'm saying feeling all the time, but yeah.
Yeah. So being unappreciated, unheard, and having things out of your control. Yeah. We'll talk about that on the next slide. But that sounds appropriate because when things are out of our control, it can be it can really upset you because, well, this could have just happened if somebody would have just done something. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
I've got lots of words.
Okay.
Tired, frustrated, anxious, stressed, guilty, exacerbated. Is that it's not on there?
Exacerbated, but it's not on there. But yeah.
And grief. Watch out.
Grief. Yeah. So
and that's
all of
probably
these,
when something happens with Ava. When you lose it.
Whenever, but yeah, every time I'm like about to snap, I keep telling myself, you'll do it right now. You'll feel guilty in 5 minutes. You'll do it right now. You'll feel guilty in 5 minutes. So, but there are things that even toddlers can do that can be very triggering. If they don't hear you, you feel unheard. So those kind of things can be very big triggers when you are trying to manage or you're trying to just get through the day. A lot of times I look at her and say, just let me do it. I can do it faster. I have to I have to let myself feel frustrated while I'm trying to gain the smallest amount of patience that I can get to say, okay, this is frustrating, but she's learning. This is frustrating, but she's learning, right? It's okay for me to be frustrated because I know I can do it faster. But at the same time, she needs to learn. Right? So identifying triggering emotions is very important, because unless you identify what triggers a problem, we cannot really figure out how to cope with it. So our next slide is about control versus out of our control. There are things that are in our control. There are things that are out of our control. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys again make a circle. And then in the circle, you write about things that you feel is in your control versus things that are out of your control.
So we have to write down what we think's in control, what we can control.
Yes,
what we can't.
What you can control. So you write what you can control in the circle, and you write what you cannot control outside the circle. So when you think about, I'm going to let you finish. I'll give you about 2 more minutes to kind of go through that. Okay, ready? Okay, so when we talk about things that are in our control, and I've done this activities with kids. So when we talk about things that are in our control, it's things that I control: my body, my mind, my behavior, my actions, my boundaries, what I eat, what I do, my attitude. And what things that are out of our control is almost everything that's not me or mine, you know? So other people's behavior, other people's attitude, other people's actions, other people's reactions, the past, the future. And when you start to look at, when you are in a situation and you say, well, this is in my control, let me figure out a plan to deal with this. Yes, great, right? It takes away that anxiety, it takes away that stress. But then when we say, okay, this is out of my control, but I really want to fix it, and I don't know how to. And you have to kind of logically walk through, but it's not in my control. Can I really fix it? I cannot. There are things that are not in our control. There are things that we cannot fix. I control what I cook. my toddler controls what she can eat. And she can choose to say, yeah, I'm not eating that. But that's what I cooked. I can give her maybe another option or two of either a fruit or something that's in the refrigerator, but that's the best that I can do. So it depends. At the end of the day, it comes back to, this is what I'm cooking. You can either eat it or leave it. Right? Or let's say you are at work and there's this big deadline. You finished everything on your part, but other people have not. But you've done everything that you can, and the other thing is just not something you can control. Or applying for grants. You can write the best grant and submit it, but at the end of the day, how, when, what they do to give it to you, award the grant to you or not do it, that's completely up to the people who are working on the award, who are on the committee for the grant. So again, I'll do my best to manage my feelings, my words, my actions, my behavior, my reactions. But if my feelings, my emotions, I am in control of validating my emotions. I keep talking about validating emotions because I don't think as people we do that enough. I don't think we let ourselves feel negative emotions because they can be very triggering. I have seen people talk, and I don't know how people do this because I can never do that. They have rationalized through a negative feeling and just moved on. Like they had a negative feeling, they talked it through, and then like 5 minutes later, it's over. And that is such a skill. Like rationalized it, said, I'm feeling this way. This is why I'm feeling it. I'm going to give it a couple of more minutes and then I'm going to move forward with this. Like the skill or the emotional intelligence to be able to do that is so amazing.
So that's healthy to do?
Well, they did accept the fact that they're feeling something, right? So they accepted the fact that they're feeling it. They said, let me give myself a couple of more minutes to feel this, and let's just move on from it. Like, it's like rationalization works great for some people. My partner does this. He will rationalize a feeling, discuss it, and the next day it'll be like, yeah, I had it, I walked myself through it, and here I'm like sitting anxious for 3 weeks. It's just an interesting process when people get that skill of identifying a feeling, validating it, and then kind of making the next step plans within like 5 minutes.
So do you think that like I feel like men are better at moving on quickly than women? Is that because we're not processing it at all?
I don't know if it's about not feeling it, but it's more, it is a societal thing as well, right? We are more likely than men to feel guilty of just doing something for a child, like putting a child in daycare, right? Dropping the child off. If my child is crying her eyes out, makes me feel guilty. Right? I know as soon as I leave from there, she'll be happy and fine and move on with her life. And I will come back in a couple of hours and pick her up. But we are hardwired, or we are raised in such a way that we are bound to, not all women, but some women are bound to feel more emotions and more feelings than others. And rationalizing is just a skill that's, I have seen both men and women do it. My partner's just one of the examples. I don't know how he does it.
So is there a we're not talking about strategies, that's next week. I was just thinking about, because if you've got the overlay of trauma, and you know you may overreact, I'll ask it next week.
But we can talk about it. We can take a minute to talk about it. Let's say we have trauma. We know the fact that we are going to overreact to certain underlying feelings that we might experience, right? We generally, in therapy, we walk through a feeling and 3 coping skills with it, a feeling and 4 coping skills with it. I have had clients make like a giant, take an A4 size paper, write the small in my control thing, then write out of my control, focus on like, okay, what are the big out of your control items you want to focus on? Take 10 of them and have a coping skill, have a 1 or 2 coping skill per item that is out of her control. And it's that well defined to a point where, no, this is what I'm feeling. I'm going to let myself feel it for a little bit, and I'm going to use my coping skill to manage it. It's just important to say, and we'll talk about that a little bit more next week, and I can give you examples. But
so is that a good strategy to think, when you think, like, we've had a lot of trauma in Sydney in the last week, you probably saw on the news what happened in Sydney. And I was saying to Daniel, you know, as a woman, I'm feeling more and more anxious because I'm seeing more and more women die than I feel like I've ever seen. And probably because now, you know, we've got social media, it's like in your face. And so I was thinking about Ava on my way home, and I was trying to think, it's not in my control. If someone hurts her, all I can do is build her capacity and self-awareness and skills within herself to know that she's an amazing person, and then I can't do anything more. But it's like how you have to try and stop fixating on it, because it's in your face all the time of all these women dying. And so it's like, how do you bringing yourself back to the present to say, it's not in my control, let it go. Like, how do you let it go?
a lot of times there are world events that happen that impact people significantly, right? Whatever's the thing that happened at the ball in Sydney, it's traumatizing to a point where every parent probably went home that day, gave their child a hug and said, hey, I'm here, and I'm present, and kind of feel better that, hey, I'm able to go back home, I'm able to hug my child. At the end of the day, when stuff like this happens, you can either spend a lot of time thinking about it, or give yourself time to think about it. Say, okay, I'm gonna give myself time to think about it. So you're saying, I was on my way back home and I spent a lot of time thinking about it. Did you spend a lot of time thinking about it, or did you give yourself time to process something that happened that was traumatizing to you? That's step 1, right? I gave myself time to process something that was traumatizing. And then after that, I'm going to sit, I'm going to make a plan of, if something happens, how are things going to go? And I'm going to do everything in my control to do it. And then I might spend another day, I might give myself another day to say, I'm going to take another day. I'm going to make sure that I've planned this well. And then after that day, whenever I start to think about it, I'm going to use my coping skill.
I like that flipping of processing. I'm just going to give myself time to process.
Yeah, because if you say, hey, I spent time doing this and I was really anxious, are you invalidating those feelings of fear, that feeling of, pain and, anxiety? Are you invalidating those feelings? So you're just recognizing it. It is traumatizing. person died, and then you see the news that says, okay, they took a picture with their kid like 15 minutes before it happened and posted it. And then, you know, so it is traumatizing. As mothers, everyone kind of spends some time that day thinking about it. Nikki, your hand's up. Did you have a question?
I did. Oops.
Okay.
I'm trying to take it down. That's what I was doing. So one of the things I've noticed about me and friends, sometimes the thing that happens is too much to think about, and so I don't allow myself to think about it. And my friend used to say she put it in a box and locked it. But what I find is at some stage, and usually at an inappropriate time, those feelings will come out. You can't lock it away forever. So, yeah, sometimes I find that something might be so traumatic that you have to just keep putting one foot in front of the other to get or to get through. I always find that so I don't even know if this is a question, but I always find that if I do allow myself the time to process it, I deal with it and I'm much better. So would you recommend that even if it's hard to think about, and that you process it or to lock it away?
I always think, and this is more of a personal thing, I always think it's important to process it. Now, let's say I am really mad at my partner today, right? But I have this really big presentation that I have to work on tomorrow. That my presentation is tomorrow. I'm going to take that anger. I'm going to lock it up today and say, I'm going to feel this tomorrow. I'm going to finish my presentation, and then I'm going to feel mad and angry, right? I'm going to let myself feel angry and mad. I did lock it up for a little bit because there were other things that I had to prioritize, but I did not lock it up forever.
Yeah.
When we keep pushing our feelings down and keep telling ourselves, you know, this is not, let's just feel it another time. Let's just feel it another time. Have you heard of that thing where you take a bottle of Coke and you put a Mentos in it? It fizzes up a little bit and it goes down. It's like, okay, so you take a bottle of Coke and think about it as your box, right? Where you lock away your feelings. You put one feeling in there, it goes up a little bit and it goes down. You put a second Mento in there, it goes a little bit up, further up, but it kind of goes down again. 5, 6 Mentos in that bottle is going to explode. So is your lockbox. And that's just how life works. It's the same thing. I have this bottle. I have a problem. I dropped in it. I got a little bit annoyed about it, but whatever. Or a comment from somebody, right? I am feeling insecure about myself, and somebody made a comment, and that just made it go up a little bit and down. The 10th person who makes a comment about me that day is going to hear an earful, because I am going to burst at some point, right? It's the same thing with problems.
Sorry.
So that's okay. It's just how we experience stuff. When we don't let ourselves feel something, or when we don't let ourselves process something, at some point we explode, right? You know, and I just thought of this example. When you have dyslexia or a learning disability, or you're neurodivergent as a child, a lot of times you say, this is really hard, I cannot do this. And people invalidate you and say, oh, you can do this. You just have to try a little bit harder. No, I cannot do this. This is hard for me. It has nothing to do with your perception of, oh, you know, just try a little bit harder. Oh, really? That's all I have to do? Try a little bit harder. That is the first time amongst a series of events when you were invalidated. Okay? And when you get it, and when you do it, you've tried hard, like a year later, you figured it out, that same person will come to you and say, see, I told you you'd get it if you just tried a little bit harder. There is your second invalidation. So, because instead of being happy for you, somebody just said, I told you so. And it's like, it's like, you know, somebody just and that continues. That invalidation just continues. It doesn't go away. And that is where it all starts. We're potty training our child. Every potty is celebrated the same way the first one was. Because that's how you do it. You let them celebrate the victories. Just because we're still not out of diapers, we're still trying. But you know what? She feels happy every time we celebrate it. It encourages her to do it again. You know, someday she does not do it. And they're like, well, we still tried. We'll try again next time. I'm not going to invalidate her excitement because she did it, because now this is the 40th time she's doing it in front of me. She needs somebody to be excited for her the first time, and the 40th time, and the 100th time. So, but I'm sure you were going to say something.
No, doesn't matter. It's okay. McDaniel's has come to get Coco out.
Oh.
No, I think that validating, though, is very important.
Yeah.
That negative validation consistently, or the little gripes.
Mm-hmm. It impacts your self-esteem. It impacts your self-talk, as it says over here. It impacts my self-talk, my words. And that can be very debilitating for people. Because when you're consistently told, oh, you just have to do a little bit better. And when you do it, so see, I told you, it's on me. I told you you could do it because I think you're just lazy and you don't work hard. And now you look back at it and say, if I could have just turned around and said, I'm not lazy. This is just hard. So, I have some opinions about people who look at kids and say, oh, you're just being lazy. You know, but that's not what this presentation is about. Okay, having emotions can also be impacted by the kind of mindset that we have, right? We can have a mindset that says, I cannot do this. I'm not good at anything. Everybody hates me. I will never be able to do that. When we are at a fixed mindset, we will continuously have negative thoughts, negative feelings. Did something happen?
You just dropped out for a second, I think.
Okay. So I'm going to go back. When we are validating our feelings, and when we're saying, I'm going to let myself feel this, we also have to use more of a growth mindset. Because if we get fixated on that negative feeling, it says, well, I cannot do this. I'm just not good at it. Everybody hates me. I will never be able to do this. When we get fixated on that, that is when we spiral downwards. So while we want everybody to say, hey, I am bad at this right now, everything is hard right now, there's also a growth mindset that we need to follow that says, hey, I'm having a bad day right now. I'm going to let myself feel it, and then I'm going to make a plan on how I'm going to move forward. I'm having everything is really upsetting right now, so I'm going to figure out what I can do. I'm going to let myself feel it for a little bit, and I'm going to figure out how to move forward. Or this feeling is really big for me to feel at 11 p.m. at night. I'm going to try and lock it away, get some sleep, and I'm going to make some time tomorrow to think about it and plan it out. So kind of having more of that growth mindset to be able to help us recognize the fact that, hey, even if I cannot right now, and things are really hard right now, I gotta let myself feel something to be able to move forward from it. Very important. And this is more about expressing feelings, about using I statements. It is very easy to use an I statement to express yourself, right? So let's take you statements, for example. You always leave a mess lying everywhere. Or you can say, I feel frustrated when I come home and the house is messy, right? Or you don't care about me or my feelings, versus saying, I feel frustrated because my feelings aren't heard or acknowledged. Now that is an I feel statement. You can add other things to it. I feel frustrated when my feelings aren't heard or acknowledged, because at times when I'm talking to you, you're not listening or you're doing other things. What I need from you is that when I'm talking to you, to pay attention to me, to look at me. It's very important to start these I statements to be able to express yourself when it comes to other people. Remember, you have all these triggers that's causing you to be angry. We just got to figure out a good way to express it to other people. I'll give you a good example. I was watching an episode of Bluey the other day, because that's what we do now. And, the dad had gone out and came back, and the mom took their apron off and said, hey, I just need a couple of minutes and I don't want anybody to talk to me or touch me or be near me. And the mom walked away, right? Now the mom said this because she was feeling a certain way, right? She didn't say you were gone for very long or you this, you that. It was more about, this is what I need right now. I need to go sit down somewhere and I need to do this. Very, very simple. There wasn't an argument. There wasn't anything. And we all know how that mom was feeling, probably feeling touched out and frustrated and probably have a lot of buttons being pushed. So that's kind of where these I statements come from. The last slide, which I wanted to add last week, but I didn't add, is what's so great about counseling anyways? So I feel the fact that going through counseling or coaching is very helpful for people when they're trying to learn how to manage their feelings. Identifying a feeling can be easy at times, but letting yourself and validating the fact that I'm going to let myself feel this, and then I'm going to take some time to process it. That can be hard, because if it brings about negative emotions. For example, if somebody's processing grief, one of the things we have them do is write a letter to the person who has passed or who has left their life. You're not required to send it to anybody, but just write a letter. And I can give this to a child who's 8, who's able to write and able to maybe get some help from a parent or a guardian to write that, and a 60-year-old who needs to process their grief, right? I give them a week and they say, well, I sat down to write it, but all I did was cry. right? Because you're letting yourself feel. So it didn't happen this week. So you go like 4 weeks later and they bring it in and they're like, yeah, I sat there and I was writing this out and I let myself feel everything that was going around me. And now I feel so much better because it's all written in front of me. Because I let myself feel all that sadness, all that, or anger that I might not have let myself feel otherwise. Which is very important to remember that. And here's my reference.
Could you please put the first slide on again so I can take the screenshot?
Yes. Let me, first slide.